It's the dark and the red, it's the evil and then the blood. I mean, you can't think of a Dracula without thinking of blood.
In many parts of the world, including Eastern Europe, vampires are still treated as a very real entity.
It makes our spines tingle, and we like to have our spine tingled as human beings, I think.
My father was a great man. A hero, so they say. Sometimes the world doesn't need another hero. Sometimes what it needs is a monster.
Since his creation in 1897, one character has defined the vampire genre.
Count Dracula?
I am Dracula. I am Count Dracula.
He's one of the most adapted literary characters in cinema, second only to Sherlock Holmes. He's featured in over 200 films, and now the latest chapter breathes new life into the iconic monster, with his origins revealed in Dracula Untold.
Obviously you have the classic Universal monster movies, the Bela Lugosi, 1931.
Christopher Lee, really. That was my first experience of Dracula in the days of Hammer Horror.
The first Dracula film I ever watched was Bram Stoker's Dracula, the Coppola version. It's the kind of the version I grew up with.
The children of night. What sweet music they make.
Music? Those animals?
We have to thank Bram Stoker for the brilliant novel of Dracula, where he was inspired by this historical figure in which I play in this film of Vlad Tepes, and that man is the reason why we have a Dracula character.
The vampire kind of metaphor is really just a vessel for us to explore themes that we're drawn to innately as humans, themes like love and power, mortality.
I think there's a duality with Dracula, you know, with the monster and the man. The suave, debonair kind of prince, and lurking just under the skin is this hideous monster.
It leads us to go into the dark side of our imagination.
I have been waiting an eternity for a man of your strength to arrive. What is it you are seeking?
I want the power to destroy my enemies and save my family.
Well, I think people are interested nowadays as to, you know, you get a very iconic figure such as Dracula. We know so much about that character from a certain point in their life, but often the backstories are as intriguing and sometimes even more fascinating than who they become.
You have chosen wisely. I have to say we're a little disappointed, frankly. I expected more resistance from you.
Run to your mother.
What?
Now. Look away!
The film is an origin story, so it's about kind of pulling apart this myth of Dracula and finding the man behind this legend.
My prince.
Oh, I've missed you.
Something troubles you.
Vlad Tepes, as his name was, or Vlad the Impaler, as most people know him, was a historical figure. Lived in the 15th century. He was the prince of his country. He was also a loving father, husband, leader, ruthless warrior. Was very known for his torture techniques and forms of punishment, which he learnt as a young boy, being reared by the enemy. His father gave him and his brother away to be reared as a sort of peace treaty, not to invade his own country, and he was reared by the Turks, by the first Sultan of the Ottoman Empire. The second Sultan, played by Dominic Cooper, demands the sons of Vlad's kingdom.
The Sultan is preparing for battle and requires 1,000 boys for his army, including your son.
He's a prince of a very small country. He doesn't have a big army, and so he has to find the power from somewhere else.
War will come. You can't protect us.
I'll find a way.
Vlad is desperate to acquire the power that he needs to save his nation from the marauding Turks, really. And and he realizes that it's not enough to be heroic, he's going to have to be monstrous.
Why spill blood if not for the pleasure of it?
Because men do not fear swords. They fear monsters.
And he agrees to enter into this pact.
Sometimes the world no longer needs a hero. Sometimes what it needs is a monster.
And you believe you know what it is to be a monster? Hmm? You have no idea. But I'm going to show you.
I think Morena has a really strong sense of intuition, and I think as soon as Vlad kind of comes back from the from his moment in even his moment in the river, she knows something is going on. She asks him, she questions him, and when he comes back from the cave, she knows that something isn't right. She knows that he's not fully himself, and of course she ultimately confronts them in the scene with the tent, and that's kind of where he eventually tells her. But I think she kind of knows all along that something isn't right.
What's happening to you? No, stop it! You can't strike down whoever did this to you.
I chose this.
This is the strength you sought? But why?
Because I sent corpses back to Mehmet instead of our son.
For me, what was so interesting about her character is that so often in vampire films, the women are, sexually repressed or are in these power dynamics that are really unhealthy. But you find Vlad and Morena at the beginning of the film in this passionate love, and that's really quite beautiful. And it's really the love that they have for each other and their son Ingress that drives all the decisions of the film. When Luke goes to the dark side, it's everything about, and as the stakes get higher and higher, it's about protecting their love and protecting their family.
You did this for us.
In 2 days, I'll be restored. I just have to resist.
Resist what? Resist what, Vlad? Tell me.
A thirst for blood.
The film turns back the clock 600 years to when Dracula was known as Vlad the Impaler. But thanks to a little movie magic, we didn't have to wait that long to see the prequel to Bram Stoker's novel come to life when we visited the set last year.
This is a monastery tower, which is basically the refuge of Vlad and his people from the Turk invasion.
What's in there?
Something I hope to never wear again.
Come now. We have 3 weeks left, so we're coming to quite close to the end. The big scenes, the big powerful, epic moments that we have left.
When I watch the rushes back, I see more elements of like Japanese samurai movies, of like The Princess Bride, of like Lord of the Rings. I see those kinds of films having a heavy influence on our version of this film, and I think it's great because although it's a classic tale, and I think that's why we're all so drawn to it, it's very much told in a different visual aesthetic.
I have to remind myself that this is about Dracula and that there are fangs by the end and biting and blood, but it happens very late on in this, and actually the story itself cleverly uses a lot of historical references and real-life figures.
Stand to address me!
People ask me what I'm working on, I say Dracula, and who are you playing? I say the evil bloke, and they go, well, who on earth is Dracula? And I go, yeah, good point, actually, Dracula's Vlad the Impaler. He's really horrible, but he has managed to sort of redeem himself in some way. But I would say I still definitely am the evil guy. I mean, because of the demands that I put upon him, which are only come from a place of envy and jealousy and nothing other than that. So, and want to destroy his people and his family and his home that he has built. And the reason he was the man he became was because of everything that my family did to him. That's our kind of the idea behind it.
It was played for the first time 82 years ago by Bela Lugosi for Universal Pictures, and 82 years later it's being played by me for Universal Pictures. It's a very big legacy to become part of.
Never forget who I am.
Welcome back to our Sky Movie special for Dracula Untold, where we're taking an in-depth look into the making of this blood-sucking blockbuster. With the likes of Bela Lugosi and Christopher Lee already casting a looming shadow over the role with their iconic portrayals of the classic character, fresh blood was needed to reinvent cinema's greatest vampire. Step forward Luke Evans, who has already sunk his teeth into a number of franchises, including the Fast and the Furious films.
Oh look, a bridge.
And the Hobbit saga.
I'm done with dwarves. Go away.
But what made him the perfect choice to bring the Lord of Darkness back to the big screen?
I think Luke Evans is just a perfect leading man. He's impossibly handsome. He's very talented. He's got that kind of Welsh Celtic thing. It's quite animalistic.
He's so masculine and powerful in the film, so foreboding, but in our scenes he was able to convey such a sensitivity and a vulnerability, and I knew that we had a connection and that we could really create something special with our storyline.
Just starting off on a physical level, the look. Luke has those brooding qualities. He's a lovely, lovely guy. There's a sensitivity there that was able to combine with the strength of a kind of natural leader. But then on a total craft level, he's just amazing. He's incredible. I didn't have to do a lot when we were shooting. He had this character already down.
Because I was playing the human character, which no one's really focused on ever before in film, that immediately allowed me to be separated from the story that we know so well from Bram Stoker's novel. So we felt like we were treading on fresh ground and telling a story that we believe most people won't know.
I understand you have a weakness for silver. He is waiting for you.
Delivering a fresh perspective on the legend of Count Dracula is first-time director Gary Shaw, who had the unenviable task of reinventing Universal's classic monster for a whole new generation.
We felt like we were both in the same boat somewhat. You know, it was his first feature-length movie. It was my first title role for a studio, so we had each other's backs, and we thoroughly enjoyed making it and did the best we could do. He had a real clear vision of what he wanted to portray, and him and myself spoke at length for about a year before we shot the film about how we were going to portray this character and how he was going to shoot it and how we wanted it to come across and what we were going to focus on and what we were going to make the central core emotion and what drives the film.
The way I tried to approach the story and the arc of Dracula, first of all, from a filmmaker point of view, you have an opportunity to try and shake it up in a different way. My reference points were always Anakin Skywalker becoming Darth Vader, Michael Corleone becoming the head of the family. There's a brilliant arc there of seeing this tragic hero create his own downfall. People want to be able to see somebody in a very difficult scenario and have to make a tough decision.
It's not a child's place to save his country. Get my family to the castle.
But they enjoy the complexity of seeing those characters having to deal with those big decisions.
When I initially met with Gary, his excitement and energy for the project is really what attracted me to the film. He was somebody who was about to embark on making their first feature film, and for me, I knew he was going to be a great filmmaker, and I knew it would be a really special thing to be a part of his first film.
Gary has handled every step of the way magnificently. He's taken to it like a duck to water. Yeah, you'd never know it was his first movie.
It's a director's medium, so we all give Gary our bits and pieces and he takes them away and plays with them and produces a quite spectacular film.
Gary was just relishing the fact that he had Charles Dance on set and he just didn't want it to finish, so we just kept going, let's just do one more, shall we?
Sometimes the world no longer needs a hero. Sometimes what it needs is a monster.
A lot of takes, which I don't like doing, you know. Could you try it this way, Charles? Could you do it this way? I want some more options when I get into the cutting room, Charles. I need this, you know.
Because men do not fear swords. They fear monsters.
If that's the way he wants to work and needs to work to make the film, because it's his film, then that's fine. I'll do it standing on my head if he wants me to.
Drink Dracula.
For me, it was just a treat just to be on set with him, listening to him and reacting to what he was doing. Incredible voice. I mean, it just made me sound like a teenage girl. Every time I opened my mouth, I was like, that sounds really high.
Welcome to your life.
The breadth of the film is something you've not seen before, because up to now, whether it's been on television or whether you go back to the Christopher Lee days, they're essentially quite domestic, quite small. There's a small group of people. There's a bunch of angry villagers with garlic round their necks or whatever, but, you know, and holding crosses up and so on, but it's quite small. This, with the resources that Universal has and all the advantages of CGI now, has enabled us to open this out and produce something really quite epic.
I've worked on some of the biggest films out there, so I've experienced big sets and lots of people and huge CGI moments and special effects, and this film is up there with them. It's as dynamic and as powerful and as enormous as you can wish to have on a film set.
I think there's a lot to kind of latch onto. I think that Luke is really an incredible leading man, and he's really creating a very iconic Dracula. And when I watched the movie, I was really proud to see him do that. But I think, you know, there is also a wonderful love story. There's also amazing fight sequences and incredible visuals. So it's kind of just everything you really want to see when you go to the movies.
I think audiences like to give villains an excuse or a justification for their villainy. Oh, I know why he's doing that. I understand that. He's got to do that. She had no choice to do that. I don't necessarily go along with that. I mean, I've played some characters in which I could find no redeeming features whatsoever, and I hope people aren't looking for them. You know, if the guy's a badass, that's what he is. Don't make excuses for him.
I see the devil inside him!
The way I always looked at the film was, it's a story about a man struggling with a choice between the love of his family and the responsibility as a leader.
Make sure every last one of them is armed to the teeth.
And it then happens to feature vampires. You know, that came second to me. So I hope people are able to, first of all, respond to the story, the characters, and then see the potential of where this is going to go and where, you know, what we've been able to do with this segment, hopefully, of the story.
My main objective was to make sure he had the human qualities to allow an audience to empathize with him, understand him, may not agree with him at points in the film, but understand where he was coming from and why he chooses to do what he does. I mean, it's a tragic story. It's a tragic story of love, of heartbreak, of loss, revenge, sacrifice, pain, responsibility. You know, this man has the weight of the world on his shoulders and the responsibility to save his people, his family from what potentially would be the annihilation of everything and his legacy. I'm over the moon is how it's come out. I think it looks incredible.
You think you are alive because you can fight? You are alive because of what I did to save you!